Derek Ballantyne adjusted his burgundy tie and looked around the conference room. 12 pairs of eyes looked at him expectantly and respectfully. None of them had any idea what lay behind the impeccable facade of one of the most respected businessmen in Thurmont. "Oh, well, gentlemen, the numbers speak for themselves." Derek's voice sounded confident, as it always did at these meetings. "Our quarterly growth was 22%. That's a record for the consulting business in our region." The board members nodded approvingly. Ballantyne Consulting has become one of the top firms in the state, and much of the credit goes to its founder. At 43, Derek had achieved what many people dreamed of: financial stability, professional recognition, and an impeccable reputation. Minus Mr. Ballantyne, Janet, the head of marketing, said, "The city council is asking us to head up a fundraiser in support of the new wing of the Children's Hospital. It's a great opportunity for our image." Derek smiled. The image of the philanthropist and family man was an integral part of his public image. "Of course, Janet. My wife will be happy to help with the organization. Nala loves events like this." After the meeting, Derek lingered in his office. The panoramic windows overlooked the business center of Thurmont, a small but prosperous city in the northeast. He pulled out his cell phone, not the one on his desk that he used for work calls, but another kept in a hidden pocket of his jacket. "Will you meet me tonight? Miss you," read the message from Olivia. Derek felt his pulse quicken. He quickly typed a reply. 7 o'clock tonight. Our place. Derek got home earlier than usual. Their home in the upscale neighborhood of Thurmont was a model of modern architecture, 2 stories of glass, concrete, and wood surrounded by a manicured garden. Nala, his wife of 14 years, had furnished the house with impeccable taste. "Daddy!" 7-year-old Tyrone rushed toward the house with an excited cry. 10-year-old Layla followed, more subdued but no less joyful. "How are my little geniuses?" Derek scooped his son up in his arms and ruffled his daughter's curly hair. Nala came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. In her 40s, she retained the beauty that had once captivated Derek: high cheekbones, expressive eyes, graceful posture. "You're early today." She smiled, kissing her husband on the cheek. "I wanted to spend more time with you," Derek replied, feeling a prick of conscience. "But I'll have to go back to the office later. Important papers for tomorrow's meeting." The lie fell from his lips with frightening ease. Over the years, Derek had perfected the art of the double life. The family dinner was a warm affair. The children talked excitedly about school. Nala shared her plans for the charity auction. Derek nodded and smiled, but part of his mind was already far away from here, in a small apartment on the other side of town, where a whole other life awaited him. At 7:30, he kissed the kids before bed, lied to his wife one more time about his urgent job, and got into his black Lexus. 30 minutes later, he was already parked at an unremarkable apartment complex on the outskirts of Thurmont. The 5th-floor apartment was nothing like his luxurious home. Small but cozy, it was filled with bright colors, books, and photographs. Derek opened the door with his key and froze on the threshold, admiring the woman sitting on the couch with her laptop. Olivia Tembo looked up and smiled. At 29, she radiated the energy and vitality that so attracted Derek. Her short hair was dyed a deep purple, creating a striking contrast to her dark skin. With her expressive eyes, high cheekbones, and graceful figure, Olivia had a charisma that instantly grabbed attention. "You're 4 minutes late," she said with contrived sternness, but her eyes were laughing. Derek walked over and kissed her gently. "I'm sorry. The kids didn't want to go to sleep without a story." Olivia frowned slightly, and Derek realized that mentioning family was a mistake. It was an unwritten rule of their relationship not to talk about his other life. But sometimes the lines blurred, especially lately. "I'm working on a new article." Olivia changed the subject, pointing to the laptop screen. "It's about the transgender experience in small towns. I think it might help a lot of people who are going through the same thing I once was." Derek sat down next to her, putting his arm around her shoulders. He admired her strength and openness. Olivia had never hidden her story. On the contrary, after becoming a successful journalist, she used her voice to speak out about transgender issues. "You're the bravest woman I know," Derek said sincerely. "If you were half as brave," Olivia replied quietly, "we could be together for real." There was a long pause. Their relationship had been going on for 2 years, but it was a secret to everyone except Derek's closest friend, Marcus Ebenezer. Derek had met Olivia at a charity event where she was interviewing him for the local paper. There was an instant connection between them that was impossible to ignore. When Olivia told him about her transgender experience, Derek was surprised, but it didn't change his feelings. On the contrary, her openness and vulnerability only increased his attraction. But it was one thing to accept that in a personal relationship, and quite another to openly acknowledge such a connection in conservative Thurmont, where reputation meant everything. "Olivia, you know how much you mean to me," Derek began his usual speech. "But now is not a good time. The kids are too young, and the company's going through an important period." "When will it be a good time, Derek?" Olivia interrupted him with bitterness in her voice. "A year from now? 5 years from now? When your children are grown? When you retire?" She stood up and walked to the window. These conversations had been happening more and more often in recent months. Olivia was tired of being a secret, tired of hiding, tired of sharing the man she loved. "I've come a long way to be myself," she continued in a quieter voice. "I don't want to hide anymore. I can't." Derek came up behind her and put his arms around her. He understood her pain, but the fear was stronger. Fear of losing everything he'd built. His reputation, his business, the respect of the community. What would the customers say? Partners? How would it affect the children? What would Nala's reaction be? "Give me some time," he whispered. "I'll find a way. I promise." Olivia turned to him, tears in her eyes. "You've been saying that for 6 months now, Derek. I'm starting to think you'll never make up your mind." They spent the evening together, watching a movie, eating dinner, making love, but the tension never left them. Olivia was quieter than usual, and Derek felt like he was losing her. When he left around midnight, she didn't ask him to stay as she usually did. The next day, Derek met Marcus Ebenezer at their favorite bar. Marcus was his friend from his college days and the only person who knew about Olivia. "You look lousy," Marcus remarked, sipping his whiskey. "Trouble in paradise?" Derek sighed, twirling the glass in his hands. "Olivia wants us to stop hiding. For me to choose." Marcus whistled. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," Derek answered honestly. "I love her, I really do. But I can't just destroy my family, my life." "Listen, man," Marcus leaned closer. "I've known you for 20 years. I've never seen you shine like you do when you talk about Olivia. But you can't sit on 2 chairs forever. It's not fair to Nala or Olivia or yourself." What do you suggest?" Derek asked irritably. "Just come home and say, 'Honey, I'm in love with another woman who used to be a man, by the way.' Can you imagine the scandal that would cause? I would lose everything." "Perhaps," Marcus replied calmly. "Or maybe you'll find your happiness. But either way, you need to decide, and soon. Otherwise, they'll decide for you." Derek knew his friend was right. The situation was becoming unbearable. He couldn't keep deceiving Nala and the kids, couldn't keep Olivia waiting forever. But fear paralyzed him, prevented him from taking a step in any direction. That same night, Olivia lay sleepless in her bed. Her patience was wearing thin. She had been through too much to feel compelled to hide again. Her transgender journey had taught her to value authenticity above all else, and now she was living a lie. Looking up at the ceiling, Olivia made a decision. She would no longer wait for Derek to find the courage. It was time to act on her own and put an end to this agonizing uncertainty, one way or another. The morning bell from school caught Derek off guard. He was just about to leave the house when Nala's phone rang. After a few seconds, her face changed. "What's wrong?" Derek asked, tying his tie. "A pipe burst in the main building at school," Nala answered, disconnecting. "Classes have been canceled for today. The kids had the day off." Derek looked at his watch. It was 9:30. He'd promised Olivia he'd spend the whole day with her today, a rare opportunity given his ever-busy schedule. It was her day off from the newsroom, and they were planning a trip to a lake 2 hours outside of town. "I need to call the office," he said, pulling out his work phone. Nala smiled. "Why don't you take the day off today? The kids would love it. It's been so long since we've had family time together." Derek felt a prick of guilt. It was true that he'd been home less and less in recent months. There were always important meetings, urgent matters, late-night conference calls. Nala never complained, but he could see the sadness in her eyes. "You're right," he said, putting the phone away. "Family day is exactly what we need." Tyrone had suggested a board game marathon, and Layla wanted to show her father her new project for the science fair. Derek smiled, but his thoughts were far away. He needed to warn Olivia about canceling their plans. He pulled out a second phone and sent a message. "Sorry, can't make it tonight. Family emergency, call you later." The message wasn't delivered. Derek frowned and tried again. Failure again. Must be a problem with the network or her phone. He would try calling later when he was alone. Meanwhile, back at her apartment, Olivia Tembo was getting ready for a long-awaited meeting. The last few weeks had been stressful. A big story for the paper, a conflict with her editor, and constant arguments with Derek about the future of their relationship. This day was going to be a breath of fresh air. She put in her bag a swimsuit, a towel, Derek's favorite book, and a small gift, a silver keychain in the shape of a feather engraved with, "Being yourself is the ultimate courage." It was their private joke, and at the same time, a reminder of what Olivia had gone through to be herself. Her phone lay on the charger in the bedroom, discharged after last night's photo shoot for the article. Olivia didn't realize that it was now that Derek was trying to contact her. Finishing packing, she grabbed her car keys and left the apartment, leaving her phone charging. She wanted to surprise Derek today and pick him up at the office rather than meeting at the agreed-upon location. Parking next to the tall glass building of Ballantine Consulting, Olivia fixed her makeup in the rearview mirror. She rarely showed up near Derek's place of business, too risky, but today was a special mood, and they were supposed to meet in 20 minutes, so she didn't deviate too much from the plan. The reception greeted her with cool, air-conditioned air and a polite smile from the receptionist. "What can I do for you?" the young woman asked. "I'm here to see Mr. Ballantine," Olivia smiled. "Olivia Tembo from the Termont Times. We have an appointment." It was a small lie. She sometimes took Derek's comments for articles, so her name shouldn't have aroused suspicion. The secretary checked the calendar on the computer and frowned. "I'm afraid Mr. Ballantine is working from home today. He's canceled all his appointments at the office. You can reach him by phone or reschedule." Olivia felt a prick of disappointment. Working from home? That wasn't like him. Derek usually preferred to keep his workspace and home separate. "Thanks, I'll contact him," she said, and walked out of the building. Sitting in the car, Olivia tried to decide what to do next. Her phone had been left at home, so she couldn't call Derek. Go back home, get her phone, call him and find out what was going on? Too long and too routine? Olivia didn't like routine. Yeah. She started the car and headed toward the suburb where the Ballantine house was located. She'd never been there, but she knew the address. She'd followed Derek there once, when their relationship was just beginning, and she wanted to make sure he was really who he said he was. It was an impulse dictated by curiosity and the caution of a woman who'd been exposed to lies too often. The neighborhood where Derek lived was exactly as she'd imagined. Wide streets, huge houses, perfectly mowed lawns. A typical nest of successful professionals just like her lover, with impeccable reputations, established principles, and an enviable bank account. Olivia stopped the car a few houses away from her destination. What is she doing? This is crazy. She should go home, wait for Derek to call, talk things over like an adult. But something inside her was pushing her forward. Maybe it was exhaustion from all the excuses. Maybe it was a desire to finally see the life Derek was giving up a future with her for. She got out of the car and walked slowly down the street, feeling like an intruder in this perfect world. The Ballantyne house was exactly as she'd expected. Modern, spacious, surrounded by a well-tended garden. There were 2 cars in the driveway, Derek's black Lexus and a silver Mercedes, probably his wife's. Olivia stopped in front of the house, watching from a distance. Through the large windows, she could see the living room. Derek was there, in his homemade clothes, laughing, playing a board game with his 2 children. Sitting next to him was a woman Olivia had only seen in pictures on the internet, Nala Ballantyne, his wife. The picture of the perfect family idol hit her like a physical force. This was Derek's other life, a real life in which she had no place. Olivia felt a lump come to her throat. 2 years she'd waited, hoped, believed his promises. 2 years of playing the role of secret mistress, content with the crumbs of his time and attention. In her pocket was an engraved keychain. Being yourself is the ultimate courage. It was time to exercise that courage. She pulled the phone booth she always carried with her for work out of her bag and dialed Derek's number. Inside the house, Derek felt a vibration in his pocket. A second phone. He apologized to his family and stepped back to the window, pretending it was a work call. When he saw the number, he frowned. He didn't recognize it. But when he answered and heard Olivia's voice, his blood ran cold. "Hi, Derek," she said calmly. "It's a nice house, and a nice family." Derek turned sharply to the window and saw her, standing on the opposite side of the street, looking straight at him. Panic swept over him. "What are you doing?" he hissed into the phone. "Get out now!" "We need to talk," Olivia replied. "Now!" "Are you crazy? My family is here." "I know. I can see that," she said with bitterness in her voice. "Come out here. 5 minutes, Derek. That's all I ask." He looked back at his wife and children who were playing. Then he looked out the window again, at Olivia. "Wait there," he said, and turned off. Nala looked up when he returned to the table. "Is everything okay? No problems at the office?" "No, just a client can't get the paperwork sorted out," Derek lied. "I need to go out to the garage for a bit, check something in the paperwork from the car. I won't be long." He went out the side door leading to the garage and closed it tightly behind him. His heart was pounding like crazy. How had Olivia found his house? What was she going to do? His carefully constructed life could come crashing down at any moment. Olivia noticed movement in the garage and headed that way. The side door opened and she slipped inside, finding herself face to face with Derek. "You're crazy," he said, trying to keep his voice low. "What are you doing here?" "I was waiting for your call," Olivia answered. "I came to the office to surprise you. I found out you were working from home. I wanted to see what kind of urgent work had you canceling our plans." She took a look around. The 2-car garage was perfectly organized. Tools hung on the wall, boxes with neat labels on the shelves. In the corner was a workbench with some parts. "I sent you a message," Derek said. "School was canceled and the kids are home. I couldn't leave." "I didn't get any messages," Olivia shook her head. "But it doesn't matter anymore. I finally saw your real life, Derek. The one you've been so careful to keep from me." "Olivia, please." He sounded desperate. "This is not the time or the place. Go away, and we'll talk later." "No," she said firmly. "We'll talk now. I'm tired of waiting. Tired of being your dirty secret. 2 years, Derek. 2 years I believed your promises that things would change soon, that you'd find a way to be open with me." "I love you," he said. "You know I do, but you're asking me to destroy my family, my career, my whole life." "I'm asking you to be honest," Olivia countered. "Honest with yourself, with me, with your wife. She deserves to know the truth, and if you don't tell her, I will." Derek turned pale. "You won't do it." "Why not?" Olivia took a step toward the door leading into the house. What's stopping me? Loving you. It's only destroying me. Taking care of your family? I don't have to care about people who don't even know I exist. Olivia, stop! Derek grabbed her arm. You don't know what you're doing. This is going to destroy us all. I'm almost nothing left. She grinned bitterly. I had so hoped you'd be different, that you would accept me whole, with my past, with my dreams for the future. You knew who I was from the beginning, knew what I went through to become me, and I thought that's who you loved me for. I do, Derek insisted, but understand, the world isn't that simple. People won't understand. My clients, my partners. It'll destroy everything I've built over the years. What about what I've been building? Olivia asked, raising her voice. My life, my dignity, my belief that I've finally found a man who sees the real me. Is that worthless? Derek looked back at the door leading into the house, fearing they might be overheard. Quiet, please. Let's discuss this later, somewhere else. There is no more later, Olivia cut him off. I'm tired of your excuses. Tonight is the day. Either you tell your wife honestly about us, or I'll do it for you. She pulled her hand out of his grip and stepped toward the door again. What will you tell her? Derek asked with desperation. That her husband is dating a transgender woman? That he knew about it from the beginning and it didn't stop him? You think that's going to change anything? You're only going to hurt her and the kids. What about the pain you're causing me? Olivia turned to him, tears in her eyes. Every time you go off to them, leaving me alone. Every time we can't go out together because you're afraid of being seen. Every time you say you love me, but not enough to admit it openly. Derek didn't know what to say back. He saw the pain in her eyes, understood her feelings, but the fear of losing everything paralyzed him. I'm going to give you one last opportunity, Olivia said quietly. Make a choice, Derek. Now tell your wife the truth, or I'll do it for you. He stared at her, unable to utter a word. His whole being screamed in horror at the choice she was putting before him. Daddy! A child's voice from the front porch made them both flinch. Where are you? Mom's asking if you want some lemonade. It was Tyrone. Derek could hear his son approaching the garage. In a few seconds, he would open the door and see Olivia. Go away, Derek whispered desperately. Please don't do this. It's too late. Olivia shook her head. I won't hide anymore. She turned toward the door, behind which Tyrone's footsteps could be heard. At that moment, something snapped in Derek. Fear, panic, despair merged into one maddening impulse. He glanced around the garage and saw the box on the workbench where he kept the gun, a gift from his father that he never used but kept loaded in case of a home invasion. Without fully realizing what he was doing, Derek rushed to the workbench, slid the drawer open, and grabbed the gun. Everything happened in slow motion. He turned, saw Olivia reaching for the doorknob, her hand touching the metal. Don't, he whispered, raising the gun. Olivia turned around and saw the weapon in his hand. Her eyes widened with shock and disbelief. Derek, what are you? The gunshot sounded deafening in the confined space of the garage. Olivia recoiled, clutching her chest. A dark stain blurred on her light-colored blouse. She looked down at her blood-stained hands, then looked up at Derek. Why? She whispered, and began to slump to the floor. Derek stood, paralyzed with horror at what he had just done. The gun fell out of his hand, hitting the concrete floor with a clatter. He rushed to Olivia, picking up her falling body. No, 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 he whispered, pressing his hand against her wound, trying to stop the bleeding. What have I done? Olivia, hold on, please, hold on. But the life was already leaving her eyes. One last breath, one last uncomprehending look, and Olivia collapsed in his arms. Dad? Tyrone's voice came again, now very close to the door. What was that noise? Derek froze, holding the lifeless body of the woman he loved. His hands, his clothes, the garage floor, everything was covered in blood. Outside the door stood his 7-year-old son. In the house, his wife and daughter, his whole life. In that moment, something changed in him. Panic and shock gave way to cold, calculating fear. He couldn't let his family see this. He couldn't let his children know their father was a murderer. "Just a minute, son," he shouted, trying to make his voice sound normal. "I dropped my tools. I'll be right there." He carefully placed Olivia's body on the floor and looked around quickly. He had to get rid of the evidence, cover his tracks, come up with a plan. Derek Ballantyne, always so collected and rational, was now frantically thinking of ways to save himself from the consequences of his own insane act. Her car, her belongings, her body. It all had to go, and fast. Cold determination gripped him. He would find a way to cover up what had happened. He had to, for his family, for himself, even if it means the last trace of Olivia Tembo will vanish from the face of the earth as if she never existed. The industrial district of Thurmont never looked inviting, but at 5 o'clock in the morning it seemed especially bleak. An early worker rushing to his shift noticed an unusually parked car behind an abandoned warehouse. As he got closer, he saw something that made him immediately dial 911. A woman with a bloodstain on her chest was sitting behind the wheel. Detective Zara Nyong arrived on the scene 20 minutes after the call. Her dark blue sedan pulled up next to police cars, whose flashers colored the pre-dawn fog with red and blue tones. Zara was new to the Thurmont Homicide Squad, transferred from Boston only 6 months ago, but already she'd earned a reputation as a meticulous and perceptive investigator. "What do we got?" she asked, approaching the patrol officer who had first arrived on the scene. "Female, black, approximately 25 to 30 years old," the officer replied. "Gunshot wound to the chest. It appears that death occurred about 10 to 12 hours ago. Documents in the bag identify her as Olivia Tembo, a reporter for the Thurmont Times." Zara put on latex gloves and cautiously approached the car. The victim's body was already being examined by the medical examiner. "Good morning, doctor." "Chen." Zara nodded. "What do you think?" "Single gunshot to the chest, large caliber," the medical examiner answered without taking her eyes off the body. "Death was instantaneous. Given the body temperature and rigor mortis, I'd say she died yesterday, between 15 and 17 hours. Zara scrutinized the scene of the crime. The silver Toyota Prius was parked neatly behind an abandoned warehouse. In a place where it was unlikely to be discovered quickly, the glove compartment was empty. On the seat next to the body was a purse with credit cards and some cash in it. "It's a weird robbery," Zara said. "Money and cards are still there." "Maybe the killer was spooked," the patrolman suggested. "In an industrial zone? After hours?" Zara shook her head. "Not likely. And look how neatly parked the car is. If it was driven here after the murder, it was done by someone who was very calm and collected." Zara continued her search. The trunk revealed a towel, a bathing suit, and a book. It looked like the victim was going on a vacation by the water. There was also a small gift box with a silver keychain in the shape of a feather. It was engraved, "Being yourself is the ultimate courage." "Check the victim's cell phone," Zara ordered. "I want a complete printout of calls and texts from the last month, and send forensics to her apartment as soon as we get a warrant." By 8 a.m., Zara was already at the editorial office of the Thurmont Times. The editor-in-chief, James Woods, looked shocked at the news of his employee's death. "Olivia was one of our best," he said, as he ushered Zara into his office. "Talented, principled, fearless. I can't believe someone would do this to her." "What has she been working on lately?" Zara asked, pulling out a notebook. "A series of articles on the transgender experience," Woods replied. "It was personal to her. Olivia had gone through a transgender transition herself a few years ago, before moving to Thurmont. She didn't hide it, but she didn't advertise it much either." Zara made a note of it. It was an interesting fact that could be related to the motive for the crime. Transphobic violence, unfortunately, was not uncommon. But what about other topics? Investigative journalism? Maybe something that might have caused someone's negative reaction? Woods shook his head. She'd mostly written personal columns and interviews in recent months, nothing edgy or scandalous. Though? Zara looked up from her notepad. There was one odd moment a couple months ago. Olivia interviewed Derek Ballantyne. He's a major figure in local business, head of a consulting firm. After publication, he called me, wondering if Olivia would write a sequel. This seemed unusual, given that the interview was pretty standard, about the role of business in philanthropy. Zara put Derek Ballantyne's name down. Probably just a coincidence, but it was worth checking. Back at the station, Zara found the results of the examination of Olivia's phone on her desk. The device had been found in her apartment, on the charger. The last few months, a certain D regularly appeared in the list of contacts and messages. The correspondence was filled with romantic and intimate messages. In the last one, sent the day before the murder, D wrote, "Meet me tomorrow, miss you." Check the number these messages were sent from, Zara instructed her assistant, young Detective Harris, and bring me anything you can find on Derek Ballantyne. An hour later, Harris returned with the information. The number is registered to a prepaid card purchased with cash 6 months ago, he said. But here's the interesting thing. According to the towers, that phone was often in the area of Ballantyne Consulting's office and near Derek Ballantyne's house. So our D could really be Derek, Zara nodded. What else do you have? Derek Ballantyne, 43, married to Nala Ballantyne, 2 children, Layla, 10, and Tyrone, 7. Successful businessman, philanthropist, member of the city's Economic Development Board. Impeccable reputation. Too impeccable, Zara said thoughtfully. What about friends, close contacts? His closest friend and business partner is Marcus Ebenezer. They went to college together, started a company together. Zara's made a decision. Let's talk to Ebenezer. He might know something about our ideal businessman's personal life. Marcus Ebenezer received them in his office, a spacious room overlooking a city park. He looked tense when Zara introduced herself and explained the purpose of the visit. Investigating the murder of Olivia Tembo, she said, watching Ebenezer's reaction carefully. Her body was discovered this morning. Marcus turned pale, but quickly pulled himself together. Tragic, he said. But I don't see how I can help. I hardly knew the woman. Did you? Zara showed him a printout of Olivia's cell phone messages. We have reason to believe that Ms. Tembo had a close relationship with Derek Ballantyne. You're his closest friend. Didn't you know? Marcus was silent for a few seconds, clearly weighing his options. Look, detective, he finally said. I don't want to get dragged into this. Derek is my friend and my partner. What I say could ruin his life. Olivia Tembo's life is already ruined, Zara replied sternly. Forever. If you know something and you're hiding it, that makes you an accessory. Ebenezer sighed heavily. Yes, I knew about their relationship. Derek had met her about 2 years ago. At first, it seemed like just infatuation, but then it grew into something more. He was, fascinated by her. Her strength, her confidence, the way she overcame all odds to become herself. He knew about her transgender status? Yes, from the beginning. It didn't embarrass him. On the contrary, it seemed to make their bond even stronger. But Derek never planned on leaving his family. He cared too much about his reputation, his standing in the community. When was the last time you saw him? The night before last. We met at a bar. He said Olivia was getting more and more insistent, demanding he take action. Zara made a note of it. It was consistent with a lover's conflict. Where was Derek yesterday afternoon? I don't know. Marcus shook his head. We haven't seen or talked. The next step was Olivia's apartment. The forensics team was already finishing up their work when Zara arrived there. The small but cozy apartment was filled with books, photos, and brightly colored art. Drafts of articles lay on the table, and a board with notes and ideas for future materials hung on the wall. Did you find anything interesting? Zara asked the chief criminalist. Maybe. He nodded. In the bedroom, under the mattress, they found a diary, quite frank. Zara picked up the leather-bound notebook, started reading from the last entries. I can't live like this anymore. For 2 years I've been waiting, hoping, believing his promises. But nothing changes. He says he loves me, but not enough to admit it openly. I think he's more afraid of society's reaction to me being a transgender woman than he is of cheating on his wife. It's all going to be resolved tomorrow. I won't be his secret anymore. The entry was dated the day of the murder. Zara continued reading, leafing back through the pages. The diary detailed Olivia's relationship with Derek, their meetings, conversations, intimate moments, and the gradually mounting tension over his unwillingness to make their relationship open. Officer Harris, Zara turned to the deputy, get a search warrant for the Ballantyne house and see if there are any firearms registered in Derek Ballantyne's name. By late afternoon, Zara had enough information to move on. It turned out that there was indeed a gun registered in Derek's name, a .45 caliber, which matched Olivia's wound. They were also able to find a witness, a neighbor of the Ballantynes, who had seen a woman similar in description to Olivia outside their house on the day of the murder. She was standing on the opposite side of the street, said the neighbor, Thandi Okore. She was looking at the Ballantyne house, talking on the phone. I noticed because it's rare to see strangers in our neighborhood, especially strangers this bright. Did you notice anything unusual about the Ballantyne house that day? Not really. Although, there was a strange sound, like a pop. I thought someone had dropped something heavy or slammed a door. That was about the same time I saw that woman. With warrant in hand, Zara and the forensics team arrived at the Ballantyne house the next morning. Derek greeted them with surprise and concern, but let them in without objection. I don't understand what this is about, Detective, he said, as the officers looked around the house. I hardly knew Ms. Tembo. She interviewed me for the paper, that's all. In that case, you have nothing to fear, Zara replied calmly. We're just checking all possible connections. Nala Ballantyne looked worried as she watched the police from the kitchen. The children had been sent to their grandmother's house before the police had even arrived. Zara had called ahead and warned of the visit, giving Derek the opportunity to organize it. The real breakthrough came when the forensics team examined the garage. Despite the fact that the room was perfectly clean, the luminol was able to detect traces of blood on the floor, on the workbench, on the cupboard door. It looks like they tried to clean something very thoroughly here, the forensic scientist said, showing Zara the traces glowing in ultraviolet light. But blood is very difficult to remove completely. Zara turned to Derek, who was standing in the garage doorway watching the procedure. Minus Mr. Ballantyne, would you like to explain why there is blood in your garage? Derek turned visibly pale. Yeah, I cut myself last week when I was working with tools. Interesting, Zara nodded. We'll check the DNA and see if your story checks out. In the meantime, I'd like you to come with us to the station for a statement. In the interrogation room, Derek remained outwardly calm, but Zara could see his hands trembling, his hands avoiding a direct gaze. Minus Mr. Ballantyne, she began, laying out the photos and documents in front of him. We have phone records between you and Olivia Tembo. We have testimony from your friend Marcus Ebenezer about your relationship. We have Olivia's diary detailing your meetings. We have a witness who saw her outside your house on the day of the murder. We have traces of blood in your garage. And we have a gun registered in your name, the caliber of which matches the victim's wound. She paused, watching his reaction carefully. You still want to claim you barely knew her? Derek remained silent, staring at the documents in front of him. His perfect world was crumbling before his eyes. I want a lawyer, he finally said. That's your right, Zara nodded. But think about this. If you cooperate with the investigation, it's always taken into account by the court, especially if it's a crime of passion, not premeditated murder. She saw a flicker of hope in his eyes. Affect? A sudden outburst of emotion, a loss of control, Zara explained. In such cases, the punishment is usually lighter. But for that, we need to know the truth. The whole truth. Derek lowered his head, covering his face with his hands. When he looked up again, there were tears in his eyes. "I loved her," he said quietly. "I really did. But I couldn't choose. Couldn't lose everything." And he started talking about how he'd met Olivia, how he'd fallen in love against his better judgment, about how she demanded he do something, and he was afraid of losing his reputation, his family, the respect of society, about that fateful day when she showed up at his house, threatening to reveal their relationship to his wife. "I panicked," he said, staring into the void in front of him. "I heard Tyrone walking toward the garage, imagined my whole life falling apart, how my children would suffer when they found out. I didn't want to kill her. I just wanted her to shut up, to go away. I grabbed the gun without thinking, and then a gunshot, and blood. So much blood." He described how, in a state of shock, he carried the body to her car, drove it to an industrial area where it was unlikely to be discovered quickly. How he came home and spent hours scrubbing the garage, destroying evidence. "I thought I could live with that," he finished. "But I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see her face. I hear her last words. Why?" Zara recorded his confession, filed all the necessary paperwork. Derek Ballantyne was arrested on a charge of second-degree murder, not premeditated, but committed under extreme emotional disturbance. After Derek's arrest, Zara met with Nala Ballantyne at a coffee shop near the police station. The woman looked shaken, devastated, but she held her dignity. "I wanted you to hear the truth from me, not from the news," Zara said. "Your husband confessed to killing Olivia Tembo. They had been in a relationship for about 2 years." Nala listened silently, clutching her untouched coffee cup tighter. "He knew," Zara continued, "knew from the beginning that she was a transgender woman, accepted and loved her for who she was, but he was afraid the world wouldn't accept their relationship, afraid of losing you, the children, his reputation." Nala finally looked up, tears in her eyes. "All these years," she said quietly, "I thought I knew him. I thought we had the perfect marriage, and he lived a double life, lying to me every day, and he killed a man to keep those lies alive." "I'm sorry," Zara said sincerely. "There's nothing to apologize for, Detective." Nala shook her head. "You were just doing your job, and now I have to do mine, to be strong for my children, and decide if I can ever forgive the man I've loved all my adult life, but never knew." She stood up, squared her shoulders, and walked out of the cafe with her back straight and her head held high, ready to face the new, unexpected reality of her shattered life.